Hi guys, welcome to Newsclick's Dispatch from Russia. This is episode 3 and we are gonna discuss about the group stages. The group stages are over now, the round of 16 lineups are ready and we are gonna take a recap of what happened in Russia during the group stages and also a look ahead into the matchups that are there in the round of 16 and the prospects of the team. We have Newsclick's Siddhanth Aney joining us from Russia. Welcome Siddhanth. I can see you are at a special location there, something different, not at the stadium, not at the media center. Where are you right now?
Yeah, I'm at what used to be a Soviet state farm back when the Soviet Union still existed. It's called the Savkhoz Imena Lenina, named after the gentleman that you can see in the background. It was supposed to be like a model for how agriculture works in the Soviet Union, and it's currently the home base of what at least those that call it the base. There's a gentleman called Pavel Grudinin who stood against Vladimir Putin in the last presidential elections, and he ended up second in that presidential race with around 12% of the vote share. So this is the farm that is their headquarters and their base and supposedly the example for what ideal life in Russia should and could be like. Yeah, that's where I am.
That's quite an interesting place, actually. The concept, I mean. So, but the World Cup has been far from ideal for some favorites, so to speak, defending champions to start with. So, yeah. So, what went wrong for them, for Germany?
So other than everything, I'm not sure what to say. Uh, but but yeah, I think desire was lacking. I think I think the other teams played out of their skin for sure, and it's been, I think, such a remarkable tournament for this very reason that so many of the supposedly smaller teams have done so well, played punched above their weight, played the way no one expected them to. In some cases, attacking football, in some cases, exceptionally organized defensive football, but in most cases, very effective football. And what we see is the big shock. You know, everyone was talking about how football is a game of 90 minutes, 22 guys running after a ball for 90 minutes, and in the end, Germany score and they win. But but that isn't how it turned out. Germany didn't score enough, and they didn't win, and they are now back home while the rest of us are still enjoying the good weather in Russia. So, stupendous tournament from that perspective for neutral fans like us. I mean, it's been really great.
So, which are the teams that have stood out? I mean, yeah, obviously 16 teams have progressed, but according to you and being out there and according to popular opinion in Russia, which are the teams which have stood out in the tournament so far? If you can pick four, for instance.
I think none of the favorite teams have really stood out in that nobody has played really exceptional football from the countries that were expected to, you know, top the charts or head into the latter stages with comfort. Belgium, to some extent, so far with their 100% win record and the way they've been playing, even though yesterday's game, the Belgium England game was people were criticizing it because both teams kind of benched a lot of their original starting 11s, and some of the top players were not involved in the action to start off with, and that came in for a lot of criticism. But I think Belgium have definitely stood out as far as the early stages of this competition are concerned. Croatia as well have looked good. The French have been average but solid enough. Uh, and a lot of the big teams, except Germany, everyone is still pretty much in the mix. England have looked at times pretty fantastic, pretty good to watch, and full of potential as they usually are. But this time, even more so with a young squad and with a lot of exciting young players. Spain, I always say. I mean, so in that sense, it's not a huge surprise. For me, one of the disappointments was the performance of Japan actually in the final game against Poland, because I was fully expecting them to help me keep my predictions on track and to top that group. But they ended up losing that last game. I suppose it was a matter of honor for the Polish team. So
No, not just that. I think Japan eased off towards the end. I mean, weird logic they had, but they wanted to keep that result so that they progress. In fact, we worked on something over here, and I was talking to our in-house football expert Aney Singh, and we were talking about Japan as well. So he was pretty cool that, I mean, such instances of gamesmanship in a way, it's par for the course, because he believes that Asian teams should play as per their strength. They can't go all out attack and then get, I mean, they will get exposed. That's what he believes. So he's fine with Japan being there in the next round, and is looking forward to their matches. I mean, that's what. But as a fan,
but they still left it quite a lot to chance, because it was their qualification ended up coming down to their disciplinary record, which is never like a
exactly solid on
it's a
solid.
pretty bizarre way to go through, and it's unfortunate. I will we'll see the story of the. I mean, Senegal has been one of the most fun group of supporters at the World Cup. It's a very small group, and a very sort of you can't really see them unless you're really in the middle of it at the World Cup. But the 300 or so Senegalese fans that were here were constantly. I mean, there was a constant sort of beat of music that they were playing, and it's a state-sponsored trip that they were on, because they can't afford to kind of bear the expenses of the journey by themselves. So it's an extremely interesting story, and I ended up meeting some interesting characters as well from Senegal. So it's unfortunate that they had to go out on account of their disciplinary record, which it's pretty much like a draw of lots.
Yeah, it's a subjective thing. Disciplinary record is very, especially with VR controversies that are doing the rounds. Also, there were some cards which wouldn't have happened, things like that. But yeah, but it's unfortunate that African flavor will be missed in a way. And but otherwise, yeah, there are exciting prospects, matchups. Let's take a look ahead as to the matchups that are going to happen in the round of 16, and some exciting competitions. And how about Brazil, Mexico? That's again, it's mouth-watering even when I talk about it now.
Really, and both actually, one of the sort of constants through this tournament has been that the European nations have not managed to bring too many fans in for multiple reasons, but the South Americans have come in numbers. Mexico, okay, it's not South America, it's Central America, but still there are tens of thousands of Mexicans here, and the Brazilians have also come out in force. So I think for that game, particularly the ambience in the stadium, the sort of atmosphere, the cheering, the parties on the street, all that, everything, it'll be exactly like how a big World Cup game should be.
But frankly, again,
I don't know who you're betting on for that one, but I really the way the two teams have played, I really fancy Mexico getting something out of it.
But I would love to disagree because I think Brazil is shaping up well. I mean, they had their initial teething, starting issues. After that, I think the third match was, they looked well oiled a little, closer to what they would ideally love playing. And so I think it's the same with Uruguay in a way. That now that we mentioned about teams' form as such. So basically, in such tournaments, start may not exactly matter at some point because it's about how you build your momentum and then maintain that through the knockouts.
Yeah, I had a similar conversation about France actually a couple of days ago with another one of our empaneled experts, Mr. Arjun Pandit, where I was basically saying that the French had an easy group, which everyone knew relatively, and they managed to navigate through that group with ease without any stress. There was no pressure on any of the players. They managed to play like mandanda and goal and do all these things to sort of boost team morale. And I think they're in a good spot to. I mean, that's the game of the next round for sure. France Argentina is the big one in Kazan. I'm heading over there tonight to see how the both sets of supporters are shaping up and how things are going to go down. And it's a really like you said, mouth watering sort of matchup.
England's case again, we addressed England's issue in one of our stories. I think personally and that they messed up by losing to Belgium. I mean, it's a mind thing. It's a mind thing. It's also a idea of that team being set for victory and then you just lose focus a little. And they did a similar mistake in Euro 2016, if you remember. They changed. I mean, Hodgson changed 6 players, and they managed to just have a goalless draw against Slovakia. Qualified, went through, but then they had by then lost their momentum, I think, and they lost to Iceland in the round of 16. So and they are playing a very tricky side, Colombia, because they are coming off a victory.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Momentum, I don't know too much about how it works in terms of how teams pace themselves through these long tournaments, because we have to remember that it's a month-long tournament, and for us as viewers, there are games every day, sure. So it seems like there's football all the time, but for the players and those involved, I mean, they are only concerned with their own games for the most part. So there are breaks, there's travel involved. In a country like Russia, the weather changes, the time zones change. So a lot of factors come into play. Um, as far as England's selection process or whatever it was during the last game, I mean, the coach Southgate was pretty clear on why he picked the team he did and how things went down. I think it's interesting because both teams uh, seem to have considered Colombia and Japan at par with each other. Otherwise, they might have gone even more, all out to top the group because they knew what they had to do to see who they would face next. The other, of course, some people are saying that they are playing the longer game because by going to that side of the draw,
Exactly, easier after that.
avoiding Brazil
Yeah.
after. But I mean, to look one game ahead, I can understand, but to look 2 games ahead maybe is a bit too optimistic for a young squad like England.
Exactly, I think they are thinking too much now. Too much.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot of Indian fans are there for England, as you are aware. For the sake of them, I hope they remain. But for me, the most interesting
Oh,
team.
I was sorry to interrupt, but like it was amazing. Yesterday, I was in Moscow at a pub, and I had a big English breakfast with sausages and baked beans and the usual. and some pretty decent Scottish lager on the tap. And the best part was that there
No
were
English.
absolutely no English people
So,
around. So it was all pretty peaceful. But again, and this might come as a surprise to people watching, but a large number of Russian people, at least those that were in this pub,
yeah.
were actually supporting England. So
That's interesting.
yeah, it's not like they hate England or anything like that. I mean, the rivalry, whatever it is, exists between gangs of hooligans and not amongst the people on either
On the
end
street. Yeah,
at
that's
large.
always the case, I guess. I mean, everywhere. But yeah, getting back
Yeah.
to interesting teams, I am inclined to bet on Croatia.
Mm-hmm.
They're playing well. Uh,
Definitely. Yeah.
Again,
The most potent midfield in world football, arguably, backed by some reasonably solid defending. If they can get goals that don't come from midfield, then I think Croatia are set for a run all the way through to the final.
but I feel that they are a semi-final team. But yeah, let's see how they are playing Denmark, which would be a good match. But I think Croatia has an edge over Denmark. I mean, and beyond that, again, it's the World Cup, so you better not predict, because this World Cup especially has been tricky for predictions.
Yeah, I mean, to some extent, Denmark is a one-man team, and for them, the equivalent of Cristiano Ronaldo is Christian Eriksen. How he does is fundamental to how Denmark do, at least from an attacking point of view. We all know that the Danes can organize solidly and keep it tight, but you have to score goals to win games, and I don't really see them having the ability to get, let's say, one goal up against Croatia and then keep them quiet. Yeah,
that's
it's
going
a
to be
tough ask.
tough for them. So that takes us to the most interesting part of our dispatches so far, which is to predict what is going to happen. So I'll just list I'll just list out the matches, and you can probably say. Let's start with Spain.
Score also, or just the winner?
Let's stick with the winners now, because there are 8 matches in any case. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it's going to be. I mean, we ourselves will get confused. So let's start with the Russia host team and Spain match.
I don't see the Russians getting past Spain. But
I thought they had given you honorary citizenship or something like that, and you are not going to side.
Well, so there are conversations happening about dual nationality for Indians becoming a reality very soon. Maybe before the 2019 elections, because I think at least for one party, a significant amount of funding comes from outside India, and to offer Indian overseas citizens dual nationality would be a major motivational factor for them to sort of loosen the purse strings. But since that's not happening, I'm still an Indian passport holder. But all that apart, I mean, I don't think there's a single person in Russia that is not supporting the national team. But I don't think there's a single person in Russia also that believes they can beat Spain. And given their performances and the way they sort of, I don't know, got deflated or capitulated against Uruguay in the final group game, it's an indication of what is likely to happen depending on how seriously Spain take it, or how maybe the two governments discuss things. I don't know.
I guess they will be pretty.
You can be too sure about what's happening in football. So
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
but
but
yeah, I guess
Russia,
as
no.
going by history and form and teams credentials, I think Spain has an edge there, which is right. Croatia, Denmark.
Croatia.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I'll get to Brazil, Mexico, a very tricky game. I mean,
Yeah, Mexico. I mean, in an ideal world, so far it's been pretty close to ideal World Cup. So why not
in an ideal
Mexico?
world, I would have loved to see Mexico in the semi-finals at least, but it's. But I feel that Brazil is shaping up really well, so it's going to be Brazilians this time around. Uh,
We'll see.
it's it's because they have the firepower and credentials, and then once they start behaving like a well-oiled machine, then it's very difficult to stop them. Having said that, it's a very tight game, and the only team jacket that I have, I mean, the only two team jackets that I have is one is Italy, who are not playing, and the other one is Mexico. So let's get to
So
the
Mexico, but listen, since we're doing this, I hope you're keeping a note because you will be doing many episodes with your shirt off, I think, by the end of this
but
tournament.
last bet I won, I believe.
Oh, you did.
Yeah, but I don't mind. But I don't mind. I've always been a beach kind of a person. So
It's hot as hell there. Also, I can imagine.
yeah. So the next match again, Belgium Japan.
As much as I would love to say Japan, I think Belgium will take it with some comfort.
Some comfort, yeah. That's what I mean. It's pretty evident. I mean, the way Belgium is playing and the way where Japan is at, as far as football
I
is concerned.
wouldn't be surprised if Lukaku sort of firmly
Takes over.
establishes his golden boot credentials in that game. I mean, I can see him getting 3, 4, 5, depending on what kind of mood he's in.
Anyways, there won't be any this thing because I guess Portugal will be out and England also. So Lukaku has a straight road to golden boot. Yeah. Sweden, Switzerland. We didn't discuss Sweden and Switzerland so far because they have been in the shadow, guys.
Yeah, it's true. A lot of teams from the sort of north, as it were, get ignored in this fashion. I mean, for me, I pretty much stopped looking at Swedish football after Henrik Larsson. There were some amazing players in that generation, but since then they've just been a bit dull. And it's great for them to have qualified for the next stage. It's also, I think Switzerland is also a really, really interesting team just because of the kind of team that they've put together and how multicultural it is and how many people either born or their parents born outside of Switzerland that are playing in that team. And they bring a lot of fire, and we had a nice little piece on this on the website talking about the Kosovar Albanians and their role in. It's interesting because sometimes when you see them, like now that Kosovo is playing as an independent nation, the coach of that national team must be looking at Switzerland and be like, this is like my A team is playing for you guys. You know, so it's
gonna rain.
Yeah.
So
Switzerland for me.
I'll pick Sweden because I have an old connection with Sweden. I mean, I was close to the ultras of AIK and I traveled there, wrote some stories. Zlatan as well. So he missed the World Cup, but yeah. And England, Colombia. I would love Colombia to progress as well. I think they will. Very, very positive over there. And England, I have dented their chances by playing the fool with the starting 11 for the Belgium match and then losing it ultimately. I mean, it's definitely not confidence building that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
at the heart of that team, I'm not seeing the. Yes, they have pace, they have flair, they have attacking young players, but at the heart of that team, I'm sorry, but I have not seen the engine. Maybe I don't know the driving force that would make them a world-beating squad. That's I think what's lacking, and maybe next tournament for England will
Yeah,
be the one.
people
Maybe.
talk about the team as one for the future, but I believe that in the last 40 years, all England teams were, except for the '94 World Cup team, which was.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's always been one for the future and never turning
Yeah.
up the next tournament.
True. It's true. That said, if Dele Alli and Harry Kane and a couple of these boys get going, they could potentially be unstoppable. Can they do it again and again, day after day? I'm not sure. So we'll see. Maybe they get past Colombia, but no further than that.
So yeah, our predictions are there, and let's see how right the Newsclick sports journalists are as far as this World Cup progress is concerned. It's a very tricky risk that we took, but yeah. So episode 3 of our dispatch from Russia comes to an end. Siddhanth is logging out. He has pretty interesting business to do today, and he has a long travel to Kazan for the the big match, Argentina versus France match. So all the best, Siddhanth. Keep having fun.
Thanks. If I can just say, sports journalists are a little bit like economists. Yeah. No, none of us know what the hell we're talking about.
Or the weathermen.
Purely guess.
Or the weathermen. It's raining in Delhi, by the way, so you're missing that. Anyways, have fun and enjoy the matches ahead, and we'll
talk more soon. Yeah, hopefully next time we speak, I'll have made a little more sense of Russia as a country or some of that, and I can give you a little more insight on what's happening in terms of society and culture and politics and some of these things.
That would be excellent. Beyond the World Cup, what is happening in Russia and things like that. So on that note, we wind up episode 3 of Dispatch from Russia. Happy viewing, guys. Enjoy the matches. It's the knockout, so it's gonna be fun. The teams are gonna go all out for victory.